Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Clientology Daily Insights. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Bourgeois. And first, I want to invite you to join our Clientology community. We are a group of like minded people. We have some fun, we share some ideas. If you serve local businesses, if you're in the B2B space, we'd love to have you join our group. You can either scan the QR code or click the link in the show notes below. It is forever free. So if somebody tells you you have to pay to be part of it, run, they're misleading you. All right. One of the things I want to talk about today, or the main thing I want to talk about today, is creating a detailed diagnostic. And one of the things I want to say, it's based on a quote from Albert Einstein. If you can't explain something simply, then you clearly don't understand it. And one of the things I find in the business to business space, everybody's trying to be clever, everybody's coming up with their buzzwords. And at the end of the day, what we end up doing is confusing people. And one of the things I firmly believe is the saying, a confused mind never buys. I would take it a step further and say, a confused mind never sells. If we're trying to sell something and we can't understand what exactly it is that we do, then we haven't clarified it, we haven't simplified it. So the one thing you can do in any business development situation, whether it's marketing or sales, is give your potential perfect prospect the clarity of whether or not you're the right expert to help them. Because whether they say it or not, they have three questions in their mind. Number one, is this a problem that I want to solve? Number two, how urgent is this? Do I want to solve it now or later? And that ties into, obviously, do I have the problem? So those are your first two questions. Do I have the problem? Do I want to solve it now? And then the third question is, are you the expert to help me? And a lot of people, rather than figuring out what exactly it is that they do and without figuring out how they help people, they learn all of these great sales skills and tips and techniques so that they can sell to people. Now, I prefer to diagnose. Think of that general practitioner doctor. If you went to see a doctor and they immediately prescribed you something without asking you any questions, without talking to you, you wouldn't know necessarily why, but you'd know you don't trust that person. And I say that about salespeople. If you can't diagnose the pain that your clients have, um, you're not going to feel credible to them. So rather than trying to trick people into buying your stuff, my advice to you is create a diagnostic so that they can choose to buy your stuff, because everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold to. So I'm going to share a little example, and this has been an amazing concept. And so I'm going to actually walk you through how I do this. But first, I want to share this is a simple diagnostic that I help develop for a cash flow program. And basically, the idea is really simple. Let the potential perfect prospect identify whether or not they need help. And I'm going to share one little thing. We use the traffic light system. And so basically, green means everything's good. Amber means we got some problems, but we're working on it. And red means I don't even know what that is, or we're just completely a shambles. And one of the things I found, my experts, my accountants, if the client filled this in or the prospect filled it in all green, the accountants would say, I can't help you further. And the irony is, the more greens that somebody had, the more help they wanted. And if they had all green, they would say, I recognize that I have all these things, but clearly I missed something because I still feel like I'm working too hard. So here's the secret to really good sales. And I say this sincerely, and you have to mean it. You have to fall in love with the problem, and you have to find a way to help your perfect prospects reach those solutions. So I don't do this just because it sells things. I do this because it genuinely, if somebody goes through this, they at least have the clarity of knowing here's the areas that this expert thinks I should focus on. So I'll get back to my slide in a second, but I just wanted to point out the the center triangle here is your ultimate promise. If they work with you, what will they experience? Don't use jargon, don't use buzzwords, keep it short, and it has to be a benefit to them in the language they would use. So a lot of accountants think that people buy tax returns. They don't. People want peace of mind. So maybe you'd have something about peace of mind in the center. Now, the next thing you do is, as the expert, your job, and by the way, I wrote the book on this topic. It took me about a month to write the book. It took me 6 months to create the diagnostic. Now, what I do is I create the diagnostic first, and then the book writes itself. What I love is the clarity of doing this diagnostic, because if you can't get clear on the problems and the priorities, nobody else is going to, and prospects are just going to keep moving because they're going to find you too confusing. So on the outer edges of the triangle, these are the three core areas that I believe every business should focus on. So think about your promise. What are the three most important things? Again, we're focusing on 80/20. What are the three most important things where if they fix those three things, that it will make everything better by default? So center is your core promise. These are your three core things. And then for every core item, we have three projects that they should work on to help achieve this goal. And again, this is 80/20. You're the expert. Put the thought into it. What are the three most important things? Ask yourself, if they did nothing else, what would still get them the results? And I'll remind you, with the 80/20 principle, 80% of your results come from 20% of your effort. Your job as the expert is to tell them what the 20% effort should be. So if they do nothing else, but one thing you recommend, their life must be dramatically better. So think about the three areas you would work on, and then the three projects you would recommend for each area. And spoiler alert, sometimes it's about helping them get ready to work with you. What would you recommend they do to work with you? So in the Clientology model, for example, our promise is a steady stream of dream clients. The three projects, we've broken them down into ready, aim, fire. So in the ready stage over here, and I'm just giving you another example so you can figure this out, and I will share the actual diagnostic. We're just working on the artwork. In the ready stage, they need to be clear on who their dream client is. They need to have a signature system, and they need to have key strategic partners. So our ready phase, those are the three most important things. Now, the aim stage is, AIM stands for authority books, influential interviews, and meaningful masterminds. So we have three projects. If they do nothing else but write an authority book, their business is better. If they write an authority book and create an influential interview series, their business is better. So we're stacking better on top of better. And then under the fire stage, this is probably the last thing they're going to implement, but it is important. In this, we teach them how to build a team, how to build technology, and how to scale. So that's what we do. And so I'm going to go back to the slides, but you'll see at the bottom, I created this as a single page document. The thing I want to tell you is, never give this to somebody and say, complete this and get back to me. This must be a conversation. If somebody's not worth your time to sit down and do this with them, they're not going to be worth your time to have them as a client. So each of the questions for each, there's one question for each of these 9 outer areas for these 9 projects. And basically what we're doing is we're asking them yes, no, or maybe questions. And in this case, really, really simple. For business budget, do you have a current budget that you review regularly? And that's very specific because having a budget doesn't matter, reviewing a budget doesn't matter, but having a budget that you review regularly matters. So you go through, you read the questions. This is a discussion point. If it takes me an hour to go through this with somebody, I know that I've added value to them because they're asking questions. I'm asking questions. We're diving deep. So think of this as, we're helping them identify the areas that they need to look at. And as the specialists, we're helping them narrow it down. So we're applying 80/20. So one question per outer area, and I have my little scale down at the bottom. So the secret to this is you let them color it in, let them make any notes that they want. This becomes a document that the two of you create together, which creates a path of clarity. Now, at the end, you just need to ask, what was your biggest insight from this diagnostic? And be quiet. You're not there to tell them how they should feel. You're not there to tell them how to think. Usually they'll look at it and say, wow, that's a lot of red, or they'll say, wow, we got more green than I thought. Either way, have that conversation, because if you help somebody clearly understand their pain, they're going to want to work with you. Now, I've had people who take this from a place of getting and they want to get something. It doesn't work. If you're manipulating and you're trying to manipulate somebody, I promise you this is not the right tool for you, because you're going to feel frustrated and impatient. You probably want to go back to your training of overcoming objections. In this case, the conversation is truly that we're here to serve, we're here to help. And if somebody gets some value out of this conversation, they'll either choose to work with us or they'll not work with us, knowing that they've got some things to do first. And the most important thing is, if they feel listened to, if they feel respected, they'll introduce their friends and colleagues who they know have these problems to us. So I'm just going to recap with this. So number one, you want to determine the niche. Who do you serve? And then number two, you want to identify their top three problems. You can word it as challenges or opportunities, however you feel. We create those three core areas for the focus. Those are the outer edges of the triangle. And next, we create those three action steps for each area. And we ask that question for each action step in the form of an answer where yes is green, no is red, and maybe is amber. And then number 6 is probably the most important piece. Once you've created this, share it with your network and ask for feedback. The more feedback you get, what we're looking for is people to resonate and say, oh my God, that's me. Or, oh, that's not me. If people are still confused, go back to the drawing board and rework it, and always optimize and incorporate suggestions into this. So I hope this serves you. My question for you is, how does this apply to you? If you have a complex service like consulting or coaching or accounting for that matter, anything professional services, create the single page diagnostic that helps your dream client or your perfect prospect become a dream client. Thank you, and here's to your growth.